Hey, we're live. Chris is going to teach me GraphQL today, and we're going to do it with, we're going to build a GraphQL server
Right.
with Nest.js and Mongodb.
Yep.
And then we are going to connect it to a React app.
Yep.
And supposedly we can finish this in a short amount of time. So let's see where we go. So first things first, let's do the GraphQL server thing. So you said I need to use the CLI.
Yeah. So Nest.js has a CLI that's pretty great, very similar to any other CLI. So with it, we should be able to just use that to create our new application.
Okay. So
Go to your directory of choice.
Alright.
And we're going to do nest new.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
Am I in Angular or am I in React? Nest new.
Whatever you want to name the app.
Graph. What did I name my Create React app? I think I just called it like GraphQL app. So can we call it it doesn't need to be the name of the React app. It just needs to be the name of whatever I want.
Yeah, we're exactly right. It doesn't matter.
Let's just call it GraphQL server.
Okay.
Which would I prefer? I'm going to use Yarn. I installed Python on my computer the other day. Although maybe it wasn't this computer. Okay, thanks for installing Nest. Okay, so I just go into the directory.
Yep.
GraphQL server, and then yarn run start. Okay, and then do I just open it?
So now we have a server. So there's really nothing to open. But if we did like a curl request or something, or you could go open up a Chrome browser and go to HTTP localhost 3000. Yeah, I think that would return our value. Yep. There it is.
Hello world. Okay.
Now we have an app.
Oh my
We
god.
have an API.
That was way too fast.
Yeah.
That was like, it's like disgusting how easy.
Yeah. Tooling is great.
All right, now what?
Go ahead and stop that. Let's open up the code to look at it.
It just stopped the server?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or open up the code, however you want to do it.
Okay, and then
If you have VS Code, you should just do code dot.
I know, but you know what? It doesn't work for me anymore, and I haven't like set it up properly for some reason. I have no idea why. Visual Studio Code. It's super annoying. Maybe you can fix it for me later. I was like, this used to work. VS Code. Go to my code folder. Where's my code folder? Really code. GraphQL server. Okay.
Yep. Open that one up.
Okay. Alright, so tell me about just what it's...
Right, so the structure...
It's very Angular.
Yeah, the structure of a Nest app is very similar to Angular. That was kind of what the idea was behind the architecture of Nest, is that it aimed to solve the problem with Node.js APIs of how do we architect and design a Node.js API. So it's
No.
it had nothing to do with Angular necessarily. That's just kind of where they got the idea from.
Yeah.
Was he saw Angular and he saw the way the Angular architecture was coming along and he really liked it, and so he applied it over to a Node.js application.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're completely separate, so it doesn't matter what our front end is. It still is just giving us the ability to build an API to expose data, and in our case, via GraphQL.
Okay.
So what we have at the root level is we have TypeScript set up because Nest supports TypeScript out of the box. So we have our TS-linter configuration, the Nest CLI JSON, which just helps us define our app structure to the Nest CLI.
Mm-hmm.
And then in our source, we have main.ts. Let's open that first. This is our bootstrap. This is where the application actually gets started. Okay. So this is the entry point into our API.
Okay.
When we run start, this is what gets hit.
Mm-hmm.
As it comes in here and it runs this bootstrap function that will create a Nest application and listen on the port that we tell it to, so 3000, which is the default, or 8080 or whatever port.
Mm-hmm.
So under the hood with Nest, we're actually running an Express app, but you could also run Fastify if you prefer. I do. And you can also apply middleware at this level too. So things like cores, right? We could apply cores at this level. So you could do app.enable cores, and that would mean that cores is allowed. But you can also pass in configuration for it. So this is our entry point. Unless we want to apply those kind of middleware layers, we don't really need to do much here. So then what we have is we have app.blank, and so far what we have in here, what comes out of the box is app.service. This is our service layer. It's annotated as injectable. Right, yep. Okay. Which is very similar to which is exactly the same as Angular, where we annotate something as injectable, just exposes it for dependency injection. And then we have our app.controller. So in our app.service layer, this is where we do our business logic. In app.controller, this is where we expose our REST endpoints. Okay. So we annotate it as @controller, and we have @get, which is to say we have a get method, and in this case, it's running at just root, so slash. But we can add in, if we wanted to route to /API/app or whatever, we can add that into here as well. So this is just a traditional REST controller setup. And we go to app.module. This is where we bring everything together to define a module, very similar to Angular as well. So when you add new features, kind of like a package by feature design, so users, you'd have a users module, and inside of it you'd have a user service, a users.module, and if you were going to do REST, a users.controller. But since we're doing GraphQL, we'll be using resolvers. So that's kind of what comes out of the box with the Nest CLI build. You want to get started with Mongoose?
Yes.
Or Mongoose, which is the MongoDB library. Cool. So Mongoose is actually a recipe that comes with Nest as well, and so it's a plugin module that we can add. Okay. So if we open up our terminal here, we can install the Nest.js Mongoose. So yarn add Nest.js /Mongoose, and then / not there.
Mongoose.
And let's go ahead and we're going to need to install Mongoose as well. So we just do yarn add Nest.js or yarn add Mongoose. And
wait, what is Mongoose again?
Mongoose is our ORM, our object relational model between MongoDB and TypeScript, or in Node.js. Okay. So it's a library that allows us to connect to our Mongo database and interact with our collections and our documents. Okay. Because we're using TypeScript, we're going to add type support, so we're going to do a yarn add dev at type/mongoose -dev dev, yeah,
dash dev at type/mongoose. Okay. So this is just adding what?
Type support, okay. Type definitions for Mongoose.
Okay, done.
Perfect. Okay, and while we're here, we might as well install our GraphQL libraries. So we're going to do a yarn add Nest.js. No, it is at Nest.js /GraphQL. And then we're also going to add the GraphQL library. So yarn add GraphQL, and then as well as Apollo -server. Yep, -express. So Apollo is the GraphQL framework that, in this case, we're using their Express library because, like I said earlier, Nest under the hood uses Express. So this is how that connection will work. And then we're also going to install GraphQL-tools.
Oh my god. Okay. -tools. Okay. Wait. Anything else?
No. So we're going to add type support here as well. So let's go install these, but then we're going to add our type support to our dev dependencies.
Okay. And then, okay. So explain to me
these different libraries.
We need Apollo server.
So Apollo Server Express has the configuration classes that we need. So when Nest.js GraphQL makes the connection under the hood, it's using the Apollo Server Express library.
When Nest.js.
So the Nest.js GraphQL library that we just plugin that we just added is a wrapper on top of
Apollo
Server Express.
Oh, okay.
And so we add that library as well because it passes in configuration.
Oh my god, what's the difference between Apollo and ExpressJS?
So Apollo is ExpressJS is a Node.js framework
Okay.
that handles a variety of things, right? Whereas Apollo is a GraphQL framework that has a multitude of libraries to support GraphQL, including Node, with
So
Apollo Server
like...
Koa, Apollo Server Express, Apollo Lambda.
Oh.
Then you have front-end libraries, so you have Apollo React and Angular, Vue.
I was under the impression for some reason that Apollo only had the server. It
No.
sounds like I was
Well, so
totally
an Apollo is actually its own tool set as well. It has its own servers you can use.
Mm-hmm.
You can spin everything up in an Apollo server and just use that if you want. But no, it has a bunch of different sub modules and libraries for these kind of things.
I thought people usually use Apollo for the back end and then something else for the front end. What's the front end equivalent of Apollo?
No, I use Apollo.
Okay.
Yeah, Apollo has front end libraries as well. So React for this app will be using Apollo React.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
See, it's all black magic. Yarn add --dev what at types.
So we need add types. I think the only one we have support for is potentially GraphQL.
Yeah.
So let's just add that.
GraphQL.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I added that already.
No,
No,
you added the GraphQL. Oh, you added types for Mongoose.
Oh, okay. So just GraphQL. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thank God we have fiber here.
I know, it's so fast.
I was going to a coffee shop and installing things. But okay, now what?
All right, so now we can start building out our.
Do you think I should commit this and just create another branch?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the start, if you will.
Okay, so let me just add one in here so people can also see it. / delete. We'll call this GraphQL server. Okay, so when I name this, I should be GraphQL server using Mongodb, Nest.js, Apollo.
Yeah.
What else?
That's really it.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and create the repo really quickly. It's too fast though. It's like I think this is the value. I was trying to explain to somebody the other day the value of oh no, why would they let me do that? What's wrong?
Did you get set up? Okay. So the first thing we're going to set up is a data layer.
Okay.
So with the Nest.js Mongoose library, the way that let me take a step back. With Mongoose and MongoDB, we work on collections and documents.
Okay.
And to maybe come back to a relational sense, a collection is a table. A document would be a row in that table.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a database at the top level, and the database has users, and then inside of it you have collections. Collections have documents.
Mm-hmm.
And documents are JSON-B, so binary JSON, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's stored. And super powerful. MongoDB is a great library, really easy, really straightforward. And then Mongoose is a great library layer to connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Mongoose, what we allow, it helps us to define, it builds our connection and also helps us to define our schema, which represents a document and a collection. So we have a schema, think like an entity, right?
Yes.
So we have a user, we define a user schema that represents, this is what this document will look like. Here's our fields, these are required, these are unique, whatever, right? And so that's kind of what we're going to go with first. We need to define a schema that we need to do first, and then we'll connect to our Mongoose, our MongoDB table, our
Okay.
database using Mongoose, and then we'll spin up a schema and build out the schema basically repository service layer.
Okay. You're literally teaching me like 10 different things at once.
Yeah.
But it's totally fine.
Okay.
For me, it's like easier for me to learn if it's just like dump all the things on me and let me get it to a place where it actually makes sense. Like, you know how some people learn on theory and like they're like building blocks? I'm just like, give me the thing that works.
Yes.
And then we'll go from there. Okay.
No, that's kind of me too.
Right.
Like, I've done a lot of different things with both relational and NoSQL databases, including Mongo, and they each have their place. Like, I'm not somebody who's like, we should never be using relational, or we should only be using NoSQL, or we should only be using graph databases. Like, and that's also a key difference too. Like, I've had that question a lot with GraphQL is, graph data. GraphQL and graph databases are not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a database and a user in Mongo. So open up a new terminal window.
Okay. Why am I opening up new terminal windows?
Or you can do it in there. I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do I go into my?
Yeah, you're going to start Mongo, so just do Mongo.
Okay.
And if it fails, we just need to start it. Okay, do brew services, start MongoDB. Did we install MongoDB?
Yeah. We installed.
We installed the Mongoose. We didn't install MongoDB, though, did we? Well, this will find out. And then...
YOLO. Okay.
All right, now try Mongo.
Okay, so Mongo.
There we go. Okay, do show DBs.
What the hell did it do?
This is a terminal connection to our Mongo database. So now we're interacting with our Mongo database. So any command that we enter into here is running against our Mongo database on our local machine.
Okay, so show DB.
Yeah, show DBs, DBS.
Show DBS.
Yep. So these are the databases that we have. So in order to create a database with Mongo, it's very simple. Just use database name. So in this case, use. Yep.
Use.
Yep. And then whatever we want to name our database.
Graphql database. I'm so original today with names.
Yeah. So now we're in our database, right?
Okay.
So in here, anything that we interact with now interacts with it inside of that database. So if we create a collection, we create it inside of our GraphQL database.
Because we're in this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, the security person in me would say the first thing we should do is create a user.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So to create a user, we're going to do db dot create user, camel case, and then open parentheses, it's a function.
Okay.
And so we're going to pass a configuration, so as an object, a JSON object, so curlies.
Okay.
Those square brackets.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
So, and then close the, okay, now go inside of our curlies.
Yeah.
So we have 3 parameters of our JSON properties of our JSON object we need to populate to be the user, and we need to wrap it in quotes. So this is our username.
Okay.
Yeah, so colon, and what do we want our username to be?
Tracy.
Oh, you need a it's JSON. So we need quotes, in quotes, then
user, like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't think of the word.
Do I do a space or no?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So we want this is going to be the user that represents this database. So I'd recommend something like GraphQL server admin or something.
How am I going to remember who my user is? I guess I can just look at the database and see, or what?
Yeah, that's fine. All right.
Okay.
Comma, and then we're going to enter password, but it's actually just PWD.
Okay.
And so now, just because we're just learning, so let's just do root or whatever.
Okay.
Now, role.
Roll. Oh, R.
Yeah.
It's like roll. Roll what?
Or is it roles? It might be roles. It is roles.
Rolls.
Yeah. And then it's square brackets because it's an array. And then, hold on a second. I have to look this up every time because I can't ever remember.
This is my first time creating a database.
Oh, is it really? Oh, man.
It's very exciting.
My first database was MySQL.
Yeah.
And I worked for a company in Kansas City called DST.
Yeah.
And the machine that I had was super old. And I had to install MySQL locally. and I had to do everything kind of under the table because what they had put on the machines wouldn't let me install anything.
Yeah.
Not even things to do my job. So I couldn't even get like MySQL Workbench, which is like an IDE for interacting with MySQL. It was terrible. So everything I did had to do through the command line.
Oh my god.
All right, so it is roles. I was right.
Okay.
And so this is an array of strings. So we're going to do read, write, which is one word, camel case.
Oh, read, write. Okay.
Yep. And then db admin. So comma.
And
just a quick
camel case too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect. Now hit enter.
Is everything good there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we have a new user, and it'll show us, and then we can move it over into our app. So like read write is pretty straightforward. That's like our CRUD, right?
Yeah.
So we have select, insert, or select, create, update, delete, and then db admin allows us to create collections, which you don't have to, unlike a relational
just
database.
Because you're an admin of the database, so you can
right,
do things.
Right.
Okay.
Unlike in a relational structure where you have to create the table first and then create all the columns.
Yeah.
This, when you define the schema, the first time it creates a document, it'll create the collection.
So like Firebase is a relational database.
No, Firebase is a NoSQL database.
Okay.
Firebase is actually a key value store database.
Okay.
It's a NoSQL. So you have a key and then a value, and it's all a JSON document.
Okay.
Very similar like DynamoDB.
Oh, it is. Okay. Now what?
So now we have a database connection that's working. It's running on localhost. The default port is 27017.
So do I just open up localhost?
No. So now we're going to go back to our app.
Okay.
So like the code of our app.
Okay.
So first things first, one of the things recommended by Nest.js is that if you need configuration, use a configuration service.
Okay.
And this is a great way to understand like the module and service layer structure of Nest.js.
Okay.
So in our case, we have maybe two environment variables. We have three. We have a URI for our MongoDB connection, and then we have a user for it and a password, right?
Okay.
So in order to do this, and this is a little overkill for this, but I think it's a good idea to set it up and understand it.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to install .env, which is like a Node.js Python environment-based configuration.
How do you install it?
It's a package.
Do I
so
import?
it'd be like yarn add .env.
Yarn add dot what?
No, not DOTENV.
DOT
ENV.
ENV?
Yep. V.
V?
Yep.
Okay.
And we're gonna have the type support layer for it too.
Yarn add dash dev at types / dot env.
Yep.
Okay. Alright. Now do I need to import something?
So what we're going to do first is we need to create a .env file.
Okay. Do I do that in my source folder or?
Yeah, you want that at the root project directory. And one thing to do is we need to add this to our gitignore because this is going to have like environment configuration in it.
Okay.
Chances are it'll have passwords, and we don't want to check that into our VCS, right?
Yeah.
So
new file.
go to your git, and dot like the period env.
Env.
Yep.
Okay.
And then go ahead and add that to our gitignore.
Where should I add it?
It doesn't matter. The bottom is fine. You just create a new line and .env.
Okay.
Save. So the way .env works is it's key equals value. So we have three, right? So we have database host. So DB _ host. The not really it's a requirement. Like the best practices are it's a constant, so it's all capital, right? So all capital DB all capital with snake. No, not snake case. Is it snake case? Yes. So equals. Okay. So the URI that we're going to insert here, our host URL for Mongo to run locally. Follows a MongoDB's Mongo URL structure. So what it follows is MongoDB.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do I just do DB host equals like that?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I'd put it in a string, but it's inherently a string. It's just a little cleaner. No, sorry, not that. The value. My bad. So equals and then string.
Okay.
So MongoDB, all lowercase now, because now it's our value.
MongoDB.
:// Yep. And then we're gonna enter our username. You don't need the. That's just saying it's optional. So get rid of the squares. And so our username was GraphQL-server-admin.
Are you sure?
Yeah, but you could bring up the terminal if you wanted.
I don't know if I said that.
You did when we created the user in Mongoose. Or Mongo. Oh, it's GraphQL-admin.
GraphQL-admin.
Yep.
Okay.
Colon.
Uh-huh.
Root, which is our password.
Okay.
At. Localhost. :27017.
This?
Nope. Just a colon. It's our port.
27017.
Yep. / our database, which is what was it? GraphQL-server. Yeah. GraphQL-database. Yep.
Okay.
And this also allows you to pass in like configuration strings, like if you want to set like max and min, pool connections, like you can say max pool size is 5, like 5. So the way that database pooling works is when the application is instantiated, it connects to our database and it creates threads to a pool. When a request is made, it grabs one of the open threads and runs the request in that thread, and then when it's done, it adds the thread back to the pool. So with database connection pooling, what we're saying is like, I have 10 available threads. So if I am receiving multiple requests, right, then we don't want our database layer to be our bottleneck. So it allows us to say like, use one of these available threads from a pool. And that allows, like, if you have one SQL query that's running super, super, super heavy, it doesn't, like, it will still open, 9 other threads. So I can be doing inserts and it doesn't just, like, bog it down. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So that's the way threading or pool connection pooling works.
Okay, so tell me again what this environment file is doing.
So this is us, think like in Angular where we have our environments folder and we have environment.ts and we define like things in there that we can bring in, import into other areas and say like, what's my API URL, right? I'm going to define that in my environment file.
Okay.
Right. .env is a library that's very similar to that. It's saying like, we're going to build out on app initialization, we have a config service that's going to read all these values, and then we can connect to that config service and expose those values. It just gives us access to configuration. So in the 10 layer, I don't remember the name. I don't want to. So basically, to make our app more resilient, we should separate configuration values from runtime values. And what that means is like, we shouldn't have to change the code if we want to connect to a different configuration, right? If we want to connect between dev, stage, and prod, we shouldn't have to change our code. We should have configuration values that say like, hey, you're connecting to dev. Your dev database URL is this. Oh, hey, you're connecting to stage. Your stage database, right, and so on and so forth. So it just separates out like configuration or environment configuration from the actual running of the app.
So this is where I can set up all my different configurations.
Right, exactly. So in
like staging or
right.
whatever.
So in mine here, like I have, my node environment is dev. I'm running on port 3000. Here's my base URL. Here's my database host. Here's my S3 bucket. And anything I want, I just added it here. And then I have a configuration service that goes in, initiates this, reads these values, and then exposes them.
Okay. All right.
12 factor apps. Man, 12 steps. I went AA there. If you have that on new lines, that might. Oh, it's still technically line 1. Oh, okay, you're good. Okay, so now we're going to create a new, or our configuration service that's going to read these values and expose them.
Okay.
So we only have one value, so this is a little overkill, but I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
So we're going to use a CLI, and we're going to create a service.
Okay. And now I'm using
Nest.
Nest CLI.
Yep. So we're going to do Nest G. Service space config. Yep.
Because I'm creating a configuration
service. So and this follows a general template, right? So this is going to generate a service and it's going to create a folder called config, and inside of it is going to have a config.service.ts file.
Got it.
And then it's going to add that to our app module, which we're going to go and remove. We don't want that.
Just like Angular.
Just like Angular. So
And
go ahead and
you
remove
don't want
config.
this.
Yeah, we don't want that. Go ahead and remove
Because
config service.
it's not.
Well, because we're going to create a config module, and then we're going to add config service to our config module.
Okay. Hey, wait. What did I accidentally do here?
Oh no, it's just type TS-line warnings.
Hate that. Okay. Config.
So
Okay.
config service. So this is pretty straightforward. What we're going to do in here is we're going to read our environment variables from our .env file and then expose them as properties on this service. So we have an injectable service, which means it's available for dependency injection, so we can inject it into other services, which is 100% what we're going to do. So we're going to bring in a couple libraries here. We're going to bring in the read file sync library from FS, or you can just bring in all of FS. So you do.
Oh, no, we don't want to do that.
No. So then,
FS?
yeah. So then, yeah, give me those cute little destructuring curlies. And then,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do read file sync.
Read file sync.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, read file.
Ooh,
That was weird.
that is really weird. Okay.
And we're going to import parse from .env.
Import from .env.
The library, so .env.
Oh, sorry. Is it .env like that, lowercase?
Yep.
Okay, and what am I importing?
Parse. It's a function. Yep.
Whoa.
Oh, not from Pat. I don't know where you got that. Yeah, we don't need that. Okay.
I've just been pressing tabs, and I don't think it likes it for some reason. Okay.
So in here, we're going to create.
Wait, what's FS and what's .env?
FS is file service or file system. Read file sync allows us to read a file from our file system.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're actually going to read our .env file.
Okay.
That's what FS does.
Okay.
Parse from .env parses the file into a structure that we give it. And if, yeah, pretty much right.
Okay. Now what do we do?
So we're going to create a variable inside of our config service class called conf or whatever. That's not a constant. At this point, we want it to be private, so we're going to create a private, and we want it to be read-only as well, which means that we have to instantiate it in a constructor, which is great. We want to do that anyway. So we're going to do private, read-only. Yeah.
Okay.
Config or conf or whatever you want to name it.
Okay.
And the type here is going to be a dictionary, so it's going to be key string, and then a value is going to be a string as well, so like this. So we have.
So config equals like this?
Yeah, I mean technically. I mean its initial value should be null. This is us defining our type. So this would be like colon that. So instead of equals, we should have colon.
Oops. Oh my god. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm missing one of these.
Yep. So
Okay,
remove our
config.
equal, add a colon, and then add a colon after your square brackets there.
Colon after my square here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so this is, you do string. No, sorry, not like string is a type. We're defining the type of config.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So in this case, what we're saying is that the type of config is going to be any key that is a string, and the value will be a string. So this allows us to like build it dynamically. So we could say like our key is going to be DB host, and our value is going to be our MongoDB URL or URI. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then this actually don't just end it with the semicolon.
Okay.
Not there. Sorry. Outside of those curlies. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to have a constructor.
Okay.
Sorry, in our class. And so this, because we have a private read-only, which this means it's like final. We have to instruct, like we can only assign a value to config in our constructor. So what we're going to do is this dot config equals parse. And that's a function, so parentheses, and then read file sync.
Okay.
And then that's also a function, so parentheses again, and then it takes a string as an argument, and it's .env. So what we're doing, no, sorry, this is our file. Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're saying our config is going to be the parsed out value from reading our file .env. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And so it's closure, right? So we're going to read our file first, which is going to go into our .env, and it's going to say we have db host, which this is this value, right? And then in parse from .env is going to take that, like it knows its structure, right? It knows it's going to be key equals value, and it's going to build a JSON object from it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So now all we have to do is expose our property. So we're going to create a getter inside of our class. So get, and then it's just going to be db, no, not inside of there. So so get is a TypeScript keyword. So you have get and set.
Okay, get.
Yep, space. And then our property name is just db host, right? Because this is our value in our configuration.
Like this?
Yep, sure.
Okay.
And then that's a function, and it's going to return type of string. And it can't accept any parameters because it's a get.
So return string.
So we're going to return this .config.db host. And remember, what is it set up in our .env? So go back to our .env file. That is going to, so that key there, db underscore host, that is going to be our key in our JSON object that gets parsed out.
I'm so in over my head, but that's okay. We can keep going. All right, this .config.db host.
So not that db host. This
db host.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So what we're doing here again is
I'm returning a configuration, which is db host that's set up in my environment.
Right. So we have this config here, which is of type key of type string to a value of string, right?
Okay.
Which means when we use that with parse, we're saying, okay, read the .env file. And each line represents the key value pair of configuration, right?
Okay.
And then parse is going to take that and turn that into this object. So it's going to say, oh, db host is a key. The value is our MongoDB URL, and it's going to say, okay, so this .config now is a JSON object that has a key db host with that value.
Okay.
And then in our get here, we're just saying, just grab that value from our config.
Okay.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
So then, this is of type string. So now with our config service, we can inject this into other services or whatever, and get that value.
Okay.
So now we're going to create a module, a config module.
Do I do it via nest?
Sure.
So is it just nest g module?
Yep. Config.
We're still in the overkill part. It's okay. I like the overkill part.
Yeah, it's one of those things like this scales really well, so it's just a good habit to have. So now go to our config.module.
I like how you think. Okay, config.module.
And now we're going to add our config service into here as a provider.
Okay.
So we need to import it.
Yeah. Do I just import the whole thing, or?
No, you're gonna want to destructure.
Okay. From
dot slash config.service.
Config.service.
Yes. And then we're gonna import config service. I don't know why you're not getting IntelliSense, but yep. Okay. And so inside of our module annotation.
Okay.
We're gonna open that up. Yep.
In here?
Yep.
Okay.
And hit enter. And so now this, just like Angular, so we have providers.
Yeah.
So let's do providers.
Okay.
Inside of there. Wow, you're not getting any at all. That's not nice. And this is an array. So in here we're gonna pass config service. Yep. And then, and this is a key. No semicolon. This is a key component here too. So we have, just like with Angular, what we have is we have imports, providers, and I think controllers is one. Get rid of line 7 too. And then we also have exports. When you use a module, anything that you provide to the module is only available to that module unless you export it. Yeah. But because we're going to be using this config service in other modules, and specifically in other service classes in those modules, we need to export it as well. So under providers, we're going to do, comma. We're going to do exports.
Okay.
And then inside, that's also an array, and we're going to pass the config service into that as well. Perfect. So now we can save. And now we're going to add our config module to our app module.
So just, oh.
Well, looks like it did. And it imported it. So we're good.
Okay. Well, because the CLI did it.
Yep, it's the CLI did it. Yeah. So let's just validate. Let's just check the state of our world. Let's go ahead and start it.
What do I not have saved? Why does it feel...
It's not picking up IntelliSense for you at all. It's like it doesn't love you. Go to your TS-lint JSON. Actually, go to your, TS-lint. No, TS-config. Should be set up fine. I don't know.
Did I like not restart my
app?
Maybe
because, that's possible. I don't know. I hate to maybe think that, but it's possible.
Control C. Well, it's not running actually. Is that why?
No, it doesn't matter.
Oh. So, it just doesn't like me, period.
Right.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, so now what do I do?
So,
okay, so now I've just done like basic setup.
Yep.
In my application.
Yeah. So now we have an application that runs and has a configuration, right? So let's just run it. So you can open a terminal in VS Code. So you can do command or control tilde or tick, whatever you prefer. Yep. And you can just do yarn start. There's also yarn start :dev, which runs it in dev mode, which has module reloading, which is also really cool. And we're good. We have an application that started, and it's brutally fast.
Okay.
So let's hit Control C, go ahead and stop our server, and Control tick again and close our terminal.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
Like what?
I haven't used terminal inside VS Code.
Yeah. So me personally, like I use
I
use Hyper as my terminal.
Yeah.
With OMyZish as my bash, and I use it to like do setup and run different stuff. But if I'm working in a project, I find it easier if I use the terminal inside VS Code because it's already in the directory. I don't have to worry about that, and I can just I know that whatever I'm doing in there is focused on whatever app I'm working on. So I don't have to keep switching back and forth.
I like it. Okay.
Okay. So now that we have that, we're going to create our connection to MongoDB. With Mongoose.
So we're still doing setup.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is like a massive step because this gives us a connection.
It's a good setup. Okay, so
let's open up our app module.
Okay, app module.
So just like in Angular with our app module, with Nest, what we have is we have different modules that we have for root and then for feature.
Okay.
In this case, we're going to use Mongoose module for root, which allows us to basically instantiate our Mongoose connection, right? So when the app spins up, we're going to bootstrap our app module, and our app module is going to, part of its bootstrap process is going to create the connection pool to MongoDB, and that's what we're going to do now.
Okay.
So first thing first, we need to import Mongoose module from @nest.js/mongoose.
Yes. Should I move it up a little bit?
I prefer to have like libraries and then local. Yeah.
Import what again?
Mongoose module. Capital M.
Really
Can you go to your package JSON?
Yeah.
I can't remember if we installed this at Nest.js. Okay, we're good. All right, go back to app module. Also import your config service. And this is going to be a really cool piece of functionality that we could potentially
just config.
It's /config/config.service. No, you were right. Your start was right. Yeah, config/config.service.
Okay, got it.
All right, and so from that we're going to import config service. We need to destructure. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Look, it doesn't like app service either.
Huh? Yeah, I think that those are all TS-lint. Like if you mouse over those, if you hover over it, I bet it doesn't actually even know why it's. Yeah, it's just behind.
Okay.
Okay. So this is going to be cool. So open up our imports declaration.
Is that a
Here,
folder?
no, it's right here.
Okay, got it.
So open up it. So just open up our square brackets inside of our imports. Yeah. And before config module, and by the way, like it does take into consideration the order once you pass it in. So I always do these like app level connections first.
Okay.
So in this case, I want to do our Mongoose module first.
Okay.
Now there's two options here. To go back to our Mongoose module. So when we register it, we can either do for root or for root async. We're going to do for root async, and here's why.
Like this?
Yep. Async. AS. No, not sorry. It's the method name. So right there, capital A.
Oh, got it. For root. Oh, sorry. Wait, is that? Yeah. That's
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a function. So give me some sweet parentheses and curlies. And open that up. So the way that Nest sets up these modules, like I said, we have for root, which just takes an object that has our configuration in it, or for root async, which gives us more options. And more importantly, what we need it for is because we just set up a configuration service that reads a .env file, and then one of the parameters is our DB host. We need that DB host in here when we're setting up a Mongoose module, right? Because that's going to tell Mongoose, how do I connect? I need my host. So the first thing we need to do is import, because this allows us to import anything we need for dependency injection, because we're actually going to expose dependency injection into...
Oh, that's weird that you have to do two.
Yeah, well, because this config, like specifying it in our imports makes it available to our app module.
Okay.
Specifying it in here makes it available to our Mongoose module for root async.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit layered. Like, these are not related. If we didn't need config module in app module, we could remove that declaration at line 13 where we say, config module.
And what am I importing here? I'm importing config module again.
Yep.
Okay.
And then comma, and we're going to have a new property. Not inside of there. Yeah. So we're gonna. Yeah. You're good. You need that.
Okay.
Yeah. Now hit enter. So what we're going to do. So we have three options here. We have use value, use factory, or use class. So if we wanted to create like a Mongoose options service, we could. And we could pass that in. But it's a little overkill. So what we're going to do is just use factory.
Oh my gosh. That's all I'm saying.
Aren't you glad I figured I'd done this before?
Okay. Use factory.
So this can either be synchronous or asynchronous, but we're going to do it asynchronously.
Okay.
So we're going to do async, and we're going to pass in our config service.
Oops.
Because
it a function?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's a arrow.
I can't
arrow
tell
function.
with your little.
You don't like my ligatures? You know what this font is called?
What?
Dank mono.
Okay. Well, I'm like, is that a space or is it not?
It is.
It is a space.
Yeah. Not that matters, but yeah. So now we're going to pass in our config service here.
This config service?
Yep, that config service.
Okay.
Well, you need it's a variable, right? So we have config service. Oh yeah, yep, that's fine.
Like this?
Yep.
Wait.
So we pass in. So this is a function, right? This is an arrow function.
Yeah.
So we pass in a property, config service. That's the name of our property, and then colon means what's our type of this property? Our type is config service.
Got it.
Yeah. And now
Mr. TypeScript.
I love it. And now we're going to return. Our return type is promise of.
So when you promise, it's a semicolon or it's a colon?
Well, if you want to declare the type of return, yeah. What this is saying is that whatever we put after that colon is the return type of this function.
Okay.
So in this case, because it's async, we don't need to make it async if we don't want to. We can, we don't need to.
We should.
Yeah, why not? So we're going to say promise of type Mongoose module options, which is also imported from our Mongoose
Do I
module.
need to?
Yeah, you need to import it.
Options?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oops, error function.
Yep. And then there you go. Return.
Okay.
And so this is our Mongoose module. So we'll need to import Mongoose module options. Yep, it's from that library. Yep. So it has basically it's like a key value, just like what we had in our config service. Like it's a key value string. So what we know we need is URI.
Okay.
So inside of there we need URI.
URI.
Yep. And that we're going to pull from our config service. So we say config service. Yep. Dot DB host.
Okay.
And why can we do that? Because if we go to our, you want the variable there, not the, you know.
It auto-corrected on me.
I know, I don't know what's going on with yours also. So we go back to our config service.
Okay, go back to config service.
This is what we're grabbing. So we're saying here's a config service, we're getting
host.
DB host. That's what we just did.
So that was in my app module.
Yeah. Okay. And then this, so we're going to add another parameter, and this is just to get rid of a noisy log. No, we don't need it. That's just
okay. Okay.
So colon. That's right. No, you're right.
Comma.
Yeah, comma. Okay. Use new capital N URL parser colon true. That's just a Mongoose thing. It just gets rid of an annoying log line.
You like those trailing commas, huh?
I have my Prettier set up for trailing commas.
Oh.
Yeah, I use Prettier for everything, and then I just.
I remember the first time I ever saw trailing commas, I was like, why is there a comma?
Why do you need that? It's so unnecessary. Yeah. So one more key thing here is after our use factory here, we need to do inject.
After use.
So
factory.
Yep, there we go.
Here?
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. You need a comma.
Oh, comma.
And this takes an array, and we're just going to pass in our config service. And this is saying like, hey, when you're looking here for config service, this is where you grab that value from. And we know that we can get it from our imports, which has config module. Does that make sense?
I feel like I'm so inconsistent with spaces and not.
Prettier would fix that.
Yeah. Well, I do have Prettier in here somewhere, right? Yeah.
It says you have it running on here.
Yeah. All right, inject.
But I don't know if you have it on your save actions, do you?
Does it?
Hit save. Command S.
It doesn't.
No. You want to fix that?
Yeah.
Okay. Open up. Do Control Command Shift P.
Command
Shift P. And do. I think it's save. On save. Or just do settings. Open settings UI.
Oh my god, settings.
You need the arrow first. Yeah. Now do settings. And then you have preferences, open settings UI.
Okay.
And scroll down. It's down there somewhere. This is weird. It's different.
Is this an older version of VS Code?
Might be.
Yeah, it's actually not that old. I just installed it like a few months
do
ago.
Do on save or do save. Just see what comes up. Scroll up. Maybe at the top. There you go. Format on save. Now you're good.
All right.
Now go back to that and hit and now save. Prettier.
Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah.
Much needed.
And you can change like your print width.
No.
So go to Prettier RC.
Yeah.
If you want, you can remove that. And you can also change your print width. Like I don't use tabs, so I do use tabs false, and then I do tab width of 2.
Use tabs false.
You need tabs.
I use tabs.
No, I mean you can hit tab, but it doesn't use like a tab element. It uses 2 spaces.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's up to you. But this is where you get it's JSON. There you go.
You say that like I play with JSON so much. It's JSON. Okay. Why doesn't the config do trailing? Oh, because I took it out. That's why.
Yeah.
How nice is that? I was like, you're being
Immediate
inconsistent.
feedback.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and start our app again just to make sure that we're still good to go.
Okay.
And then it should blow an error if we can't connect to
So
our
it's
database.
control tilde, right?
Yep.
Control tilde. Okay. So start the app.
Yep, yarn start.
How come you don't just run it in the background?
You could.
Okay. Did that work?
It did not work.
How did that work? Yarn set. Okay. So it still works. Or no, error. Command
Let's see what our error is. It might be our connection.
Command failed with exit code.
Scroll up. Oh, there it is. Has no exported Mongoose module options.
Maybe I'm importing from the wrong place.
Scroll over. Oh wait. Oh, I thought you didn't have a. No, that's definitely right.
At nest.js/mongoose. Did I not install the library? Maybe.
You can try it again. You can try.
Yarn.
Oh, you're not.
Look at that. But it shows up.
Well, that's just because you've already typed it.
Okay. Yarn
at nest.js.
At nest.js/mongoose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now try it. There we go.
Okay.
So now we're started and we have a connection to our database.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, so wait. All we did was set up a connection to our database.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you also had to install everything.
Yeah.
And install the database. And get it running. And create a database.
So should I press pause and make that one video and we start a new video?
Yeah, I think that like if you wanted like an initial setup of like, here's all the things to just connect to the database.
Here's how you cry.
A lesson in crying.
So let me just okay, so this is I'm still on my Graphql server.
Yeah.
So this is setup connection to Mongo
with Mongoose.
Mongoose. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's really all we did.
Okay, good. I don't know how I made it so that I have to put my password in. Okay, so
you added a passphrase when you created the SSH.
Do you think, if people are gonna follow along, do you think I should merge this and then check out master again, or do you think I should just work off this?
I work off the branch.
You'd if I'm gonna create another branch.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Or you think I should create another branch?
Yeah, I mean at this point I would.
So do you
maybe
think I should...
maybe a branch that represents the initial commit has the setup of all the library installs. So maybe it's just the initial app up in S2, and then the first branch is connection to Mongoose, right? Our MongoDB connection.
But right now, do you think I should merge this branch in and then check out master again?
Yes, and then I think you should create a new branch.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, and then what are we doing next?
So do get fetch origin.
Get fetch origin?
Yeah. So now I would do a get checkout -b of the new. So the
Did
new
that
branch.
pull everything new down?
Huh?
Just get fetch origin. Just pulled everything down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Huh? Yeah,
That's nice. Okay.